Good afternoon. My name is Peter Blatchford and I'm the Marketing Director of a company called Starfish Technologies. What I'd like to tell you about is our experiences of dealing with the UKTI and how they helped me specifically with a project I had in mind to sell our technology into Eastern Europe. So what I'd like to do first of all is tell you a little bit about the company, just to set the scene, because it's important that you understand something about the company as to why the project is relevant. So we are, I describe the company as Media Technology and Broadcast. We were founded in the UK in 2000. We're based in Reading and we're ISO 9001 registered. I don't know if that means anything to you. What it basically means is we are trying to sell to very large corporates and very large media companies, and the fact that we're ISO 9000 registered means that everything we do has to be done professionally and has to be done morally correctly, and everything we do paperwork-wise has to be in a state that anybody could check and be happy with. And we've grown dramatically. In recent years, we doubled the turnover of the company and then trebled the turnover of the company. So although we are only a small number of people, the turnover of the company is actually really large now. Our core competency is in building what we call regional insertion systems. And I'll tell you a little bit about that in a moment. We also are involved with audio description technology. And as I mentioned earlier, basically anything that involves new technology for the traditional broadcasters and increasingly the new broadcaster. And the new broadcaster is quite typically a telecoms company that is sourcing TV signals from somewhere around the world, redistributing them and repurposing that content. So the regional TV market is involved with local advertising, which is an increasingly popular requirement. There's an awful lot of money that broadcast TV stations can make from doing local or regional advertising. These systems are also designed to offer local programming and local news. So you can have a situation where you have a very large national broadcaster, but in your particular area of the country, you're receiving a signal where there is an opt-out at particular times of the day, and that opt-out will include very local regional content programs, so magazine programs, or as is described there, news, from a very low-cost news gathering system. They use to replace inappropriate material. As TV signals are distributed around the world now, you're taking a signal that was designed for one market with content for that market, and you want to replay that in a different market, and a lot of times particular scenes, programs, content are not considered appropriate for that other market, so those signals have to be masked, and the way they're masked is replacing them with an alternative program that does meet local requirements. And increasingly local live events such as sports, very popular, a really nice way to regionalize a large TV channel so it's more appropriate for a local audience. The systems we build are very heavily automated. So from what I've described, you can see that we are targeting a very small market. This is a very niche market. We're not a company that has a large portfolio of product. We're not a company that will typically come to a trade show like BBE to show our technology. We know who our potential customers are. Our challenge is to get in to see those people and basically present what we do. Audio description, which is the other area that I mentioned we're involved with, is a additional audio service for people with sight problems. If you had somebody in your family, your close family, that had a sight problem or was blind, you would know about this service. If you don't, you almost certainly have never heard of the service. It's something that broadcasters now have to provide. It's a mandated service. So again, we're in a very small niche there. We know who the potential customers are. We know who the broadcasters are that have to provide audio description. We're not looking for 1,000 customers. We're looking to target the 1 or 2 customers who we know need this service and get in and present the technology that we have. So a typical approach with a technology company might be to advertise what you have, and I accept the fact that it will raise the profile of the company a little. However, for what I've described we do as a company, there's very little benefit in magazine advertising or advertising in any form. We know who the target customers are. Blanketing the whole industry is not going to help us in any way at all. Historically, in this industry, the media TV industry, trade shows were a really important part of your marketing. It was where you saw your customers. Everybody used to attend these shows, and a lot of the attendees were looking for some new technology, something different, some way of differentiating themselves from their competition. I believe that's no longer the case, and it's increasingly difficult now to go to a trade show, to present the sort of technology that we offer as a company, and to meet new potential customers. It just doesn't happen. As I've explained, we're in a niche market. I believe at major trade shows you're seeing fewer visitors at the correct level. We need to be selling at a very high level in a broadcast or media organisation. And the people that are attending the big trade shows don't go around anymore typically looking for new technology. A lot of their time at a trade show now is spent in meetings with existing suppliers. And you could ask what is the benefit of that and argue why that might or might not make sense. Whatever the reason, that's what happens. So again, for a company like ours, we exhibit at IBC and NAB, and increasingly it is not a good place to showcase what we do. Increasingly it becomes a meeting point. So I'm not a big fan of trade shows. So about a year ago, I was sat in my office, and apart from the sort of 250 unwanted emails that I receive every day from people trying to sell me something, I also get phone calls. And I received a phone call one day from a lady who said she was from the International Trade Sector Advisory Board, and her market was creative and media, and she was here to help me. And I don't know if you can ascertain from the tone of my voice, I was really skeptical how somebody from an international trade sector advisor could help me. I've worked in the industry for 30 years. I should know what I'm doing by now. We know who our target customers are. How could somebody from the UKTI help me and help a company like Starfish? The lady that called up was very earnest. I got the impression she was really trying to do her job. Quite honestly, I almost felt sorry for her because I appreciate she was ringing people like me every day and probably getting a very similar response. I was very skeptical of what they could do to help me, but I met her partly through due diligence. I'm a pretty arrogant person. As I said, I've been around in this industry 30 years, but even I accept that I don't know everything. And maybe this woman could tell me something, and maybe they could advise me on something that might be of use, but I was very skeptical. When she came in, I explained the scenario, what I've just explained to you about the markets that we're in and what we do, and how the ideal scenario for us as a technology company would be to meet senior executives of major international broadcasters, people we don't know, people who aren't our customers, and I had to get in at a very high level. What we sell at the high end is can be a very expensive option. It can make a TV company millions and millions of pounds, but it can be a significant investment. And typically it's a very fundamental change in their business model. They might not have considered, they might be a broadcaster that's been in the industry for years, they might not have considered doing what we do. So I have to talk to a very senior executive. And what she suggested to me, the advisor, was that I made use of the Overseas Market Introduction Service, what they called OMIS, which of course I'd never heard of. I had no idea what that meant or what value it could be to me. She described what they might do, and I decided to go along with it. Based on what I've told you, trade shows aren't working for us. Generic advertising doesn't work. So my view was I've got nothing to lose. And as I said, she was genuinely keen to help us. What I outlined to her was some particular markets where we don't see the broadcasters at major trade shows, and we don't have a connection currently. And that was in Eastern Europe, which I think can be particularly hard to sell to in the broadcast or media market. And I identified a number of countries, Slovakia, Slovenia, the Czech Republic and Poland. We already have a very small presence in Hungary, so they would be the other obvious country to be included in that list. But I wasn't too ambitious, so I said let's just go with those 4 countries and let's try this and see what you can do to help. What I had to do was I had to tell them who were the companies I wanted to meet. Now, bearing in mind what I've told you, that was very easy. In the case of Slovenia, there are 3 major broadcasters. So it took me minutes to type them an email and say, these are the 3 broadcasters I want to see in Slovenia. Please get me the appointment with the most senior executive you can in that organisation. And what happened next in the OMIS cycle is they put me in direct communication with somebody at the local embassy. So I started receiving emails from a trade representative in Slovakia, Ljubljana in Slovenia, Prague, and Warsaw. So I had a direct contact with somebody in the UK embassy. I told them the names of the customers I wanted to see, and they went around about trying to get me appointments. I gave them some target dates and weeks, so I'd like to go to Poland between these dates. And these poor people had to phone up a very large broadcaster based in their country, totally cold, and try and convince them to meet with somebody from a company they'd never heard of who was basically there to sell them something they didn't think they wanted. So, as I said earlier, I've been in the industry 30 years, I know everything. What I do accept is I would never get that appointment. It's just not going to happen. That guy's incredibly busy. He's probably receiving hundreds of unwanted emails a day and an awful lot of phone calls from people trying to sell him something. I'm not going to get an appointment with that guy. These people did. And the reason is fairly obvious. They weren't technology experts. They didn't get dragged into a technology conversation about we're not interested in that. They phoned up to say, we're from the UK Embassy. We have somebody from a UK technology company that's growing dramatically. We think you should see this guy. He's coming over here on, if you like, a trade mission, and he wants to see you. And you can imagine what the responses were. Most of them made excuses. Instead of, when they agreed to meet me, a lot of them at the last minute pulled out and sent a deputy. And being Eastern European, some of them were incredibly blunt. And a couple of them said to me, you know, we're only in this meeting for one reason, and that's because my boss told me. And the reason he told me to come to this meeting was we got a phone call from the UK Embassy. Quite honestly, I don't care. And I told a couple of them, when they were blunt with me, I told them bluntly back, I don't really care. I've got 45 minutes to tell you what we do. Why don't you sit there and listen? And, you know, you might actually learn something from this. And all of the meetings were incredibly useful, despite the skepticism on their side, despite the fact they might be looking at their watch, they didn't want to be in the meeting. what I got from it was I had a meeting with a very senior representative, senior engineering guy, business manager from every major broadcaster in those 4 countries. And I know I could not have done that in any other way. Also, the UK embassies were really helpful in terms of the really obvious things like appropriate hotels. Where would I stay that's convenient to all 3 or 4 broadcasters in each capital city? And also we got corporate rates in all those hotels, which was nice. They also offered to attend some of the meetings with me. And the people that came along were very professional people. They knew what to say at the right time and when to say nothing and sit back when I got into the pitch, the technology pitch, and they did all the introductions and whatever. So they were really useful to me going into a broadcast TV station, totally blind, not knowing anybody, not speaking the local language. On one occasion, about an hour before a meeting in Prague, the broadcaster phoned the embassy and said the guy I should be meeting wasn't available. He'd got dragged off to somebody else. However, they had his deputy, who was very senior, and that was fine, and he was happy to meet me. However, he didn't speak English. So the embassy called me on my mobile and said, not a problem, we'll organise an interpreter for you, and they did. And when I got to the broadcast TV station an hour later, an interpreter was there, a very professional lady, and we did the whole presentation in Prague, in the local language, and again, just very professional about everything she did. And I had nothing to do apart from turn up and do my usual pitch. So they made it incredibly easy for me. And as I've outlined, I could not speak highly enough about the experience I had and the people I dealt with. They were very serious people, very senior at the UK embassy in each of these capital cities. I don't underestimate how difficult it would be to get those appointments, and people cancelling and rescheduling. They handled all of that. They handled the rescheduling. They would update my schedule on a daily basis. They organised taxis for me to make sure I could get to and from the sites. They were very enthusiastic and very professional in everything that they did. And despite my scepticism, when she first called me and said, we're here to help, they really did help me. And as I said, what I achieved was something that I know I could not have achieved without the contact from the UK embassies. That's it. Thank you very much.